Thanks for joining us today, especially if you're on the East Coast. We've just had a dash of snow. It's a bit blustery and a bit cold, so thanks for jumping on. You should be seeing my screen any second now. And so I just wanted to kind of start off with a little bit of how did we get here? Why are we doing the Best Native of 2016? And the reason is the last couple of years we've built a list. We did the Best of the Best Native of 2015, and that list went all around the world. It got quoted a few times, it got picked up and rewritten, plagiarized a little bit. But what we really like by compiling this list, it just helps you sort through the hundreds, if not thousands, of campaigns to find a couple to reference, to help build your own campaigns, but also to help point your clients too. So today is going to be a little bit different to our normal webinars. It's going to be a lot more of a discussion. And I have here with me Holly Blue, our VP of Accounts.
Hey guys. So my name's Holly, and I work for a range of publishers, agencies, network, now product. And at each place I specialised in content, so like advice and protein, selling it, and then at agencies running native campaigns for my clients. This has given me a real good understanding of the struggles with native content across all those different parts. And so now I specialise in native at Nudge, where I look after sales and account success.
Cool. Thanks, Holly. And just a little bit about me and my background. So in New Zealand, I co-founded a digital marketing agency, and we were very early on doing content campaigns for our clients. And so I've worked across hundreds of campaigns on the agency side and now on the product side as the CEO here at Nudge. I also wrote a book, The Best Ideas Are Free, and I've been a blogger for the past 8 years. So a lot of my career has been built up on content. So we brought Nudge here to the US a couple of years ago, and we're really focused on helping native content scale through transparency and efficiency. And for those of you who subscribe to This Week in Native, I'm the voice behind that. And so we'll give you a little bit more context around Nudge and our perspective on native. And as we go, if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the chat system, and we'll address them at the end. So Nudge kind of arose because we were doing content campaigns for our clients back in New Zealand, and we really struggled to demonstrate success. And so not finding a solution for this idea of distributed content in the market, we built Nudge to help us first. And then after a trip to the US, we realized other people were encountering these problems. So if you fast forward a few years, we've got a full toolkit basically centered around this world where content has turned into advertising. And so we cover things from real-time analytics. We have industry benchmarks on how different content performs in each vertical, and from that you get the trends. Content insights. We also have an attribution model so that you can see what people do after they consume the content. And we've also got a recently launched feature, Nudge Distribute, which basically helps you optimize your distribution on your campaigns. So if you'd like to find out more, feel free to reach out. Without further ado, let's get into it. So when we looked at the campaigns this year, it was harder than ever before. So in the past few years, we had only a handful of players producing a lot of the work. Now, most publishers are creating content. We evaluated hundreds to basically come up with the best. And our criteria for the best is it's grounded in a few things. It's like, what is the best example for that vertical? What do we know from Nudge data that dictates that this is best practice? And then also we've looked under the hood at the performance of some of these. And so let's get into it. We'll start off with Nativeception.
Cool, thank you very much. So this is a favourite category of ours because it's native for a native provider. And that actually gives you a really good sneak peek into the industry, so you can kind of follow what people who know what they should be doing are doing. And this was a partnership with Yahoo and Advertising Age. And it really talked about how marketers can use programmatic to excel in native. this is a great placement. It's in the right place for the ad age audience. It's niche. It's targeted to the marketers looking for these sort of solutions. Fast loading. We'll probably go into a few more times throughout why that's important, but this is really nice. I think really it's about it. It does what it says on the box. You walk away really understanding a little bit more about how you can be using programmatic. So that's a great piece for that.
I think it works well because the ad age audience, if they're curious about programmatic and native,
definitely
they're going to click through. It's the right audience. A few other things in terms of calls to action. You can see the banner here. And as we go through, they just have multiple calls to action. And that's best practice in terms of like nudge guidelines.
You've got to think as well about how far people are going to make it down the content. And it might be that I landed on that piece of content and actually that first paragraph kind of answered a lot of my problems.
Yeah.
And that's when I was going to leave. So having those calls to action, continually repeated is a really great way to make sure you're getting, that next step.
Yeah, excellent. So that was our best nativeception, a native ad or a native ad company of the year. Right. So up next, we have e-commerce.
Yeah. So this was a piece on Bustle for guest fragrances, and the thing to remember here is that Native is actually really great choice for e-commerce brands. You can showcase your products, you can share the story behind it, and really build that brand story out. This is quite a straightforward one. It's 11 perfect gifts for the jet-setting couple, and it's broken down in a list format. There's heaps of different gift ideas from speakers and little perfect cocktail kits and so on. Good publisher fit between the brand and audience. Now, the only thing we'd say is that guest fragrances actually are number 11, which is a little bit too far down the list, really, for your own brand. It's not a bad idea to do these lists where you actually have other brands because as long as they're no competing brands, you're associating yourself with that lifestyle, and that's great. But if you look at how far it took us to get down there, people on average scroll around 64% sponsored content campaigns. It's a high chance not as many people got down to this part as they should. But once they did get there, there's, the links through, the prices, which just really, really nice just to drive people through so they understand what the next step they should be taking is. Yeah,
I agree. Don't be afraid to keep your brand front and center.
Yes.
We say that the best content is content that couldn't exist without the brand's presence.
Totally.
So just a couple of little improvements. We do like a prominent share button. Like people want to share, just help them share it. Like sharing it's a innate behavior. We all do it automatically. So don't be afraid to.
And I think as well, especially with lists, having those shares at each number, because the thing is I might want to share one part of that rather than the whole list, because then otherwise I've got to write a whole long message about I actually meant this and this is why I was sharing it with you. And I think as well, back to your point about don't be afraid about the product. People clicked on something because they were interested in it. Once they're at the content, as long as they're going to stay and read it. So don't be afraid about your brand being in there and being integral.
Yeah. And our next one, also in e-commerce, we quite like this one for the utility that it gives.
Yeah, no, this was actually definitely one of my favourite pieces. So this was for James Allen, which is an online ring company, and it was on one of the Not properties, How He Asked. It's just a really nice way of approaching something that actually most of us would feel a little bit nervous probably about buying like an engagement ring online, buying diamonds online. But they gave you heaps of information about what you should be looking for, the kind of retailers you should be going. And the nice thing as well is there's a constant little conversion points. So even though, James Allen, you've got the banners, you've got links through as well to different parts, you can buy some of the rings that are directly, within the article. You're giving the audience, a real usefulness that you can take away and go, okay, I've learned a bunch of information, I can approach this. And, a real big thing for this is that this is evergreen. Now that it's been written and it's there, they can continue to run distribution to it all year round. And just really nice piece.
That's a common recommendation we give to both publishers and agencies, is that once you produce a piece of content, to look at the data to optimize it, because something like this could drive business for James Allen all year round.
Yeah.
And so they should definitely think about continual distribution to the content.
Agreed. Cool.
Excellent. Here we go.
Sweet. So this was our best fashion piece. Now we have noticed fashion's been a little bit slower to take get into native content, but this piece on Complex for Under Armour with brand ambassador Michael Phelps. Now, if you look at this piece, you've got video, you've got little sections with how he does ridiculous things when working out at the gym. You've got some great visuals. You've got standout quotes. Now, there's quite a lot of moving parts to this, but it's got a real snappy load time. And as I said, I'm going to talk about this a lot. Got to remember when someone arrives on a piece of content, if it's not loading or if there's something breaking, no one's got time. Everyone is going to leave. And if that's going to be a problem, you're better to go simpler or work with someone where they can kind of do some of these moving parts in a real slick way. And the really nice thing about this was, the brand with Complex makes a lot of sense. And of course, this came out around the Olympics. So with Michael Phelps, it felt like a real timely connection as well.
Yeah, there were a lot of executions around the Olympics, and this one really stood out. Under Armour is for all of us wanting to be athletes.
Not quite Michael Phelps.
Yeah, we all want to be Michael Phelps, and so it was just great positioning. We really liked it.
Great. So this it's got a really long headline. Sorry, guys. But this was a piece for Sephora on Pop Sugar, and it was our best beauty piece. And it was how to copy Instagram's most liked celebrity looks this season. He rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Now, actually, this could almost arguably be a contender for the best e-commerce. What they've done is they've included your favorite sort of celebrity Instagram influencers and taken their looks and told you how you could do them, and then included links to all the products that you will need to take that look. And that's great. Always really enjoy that approach, being able to take it directly to the product, but having a usefulness for the reader. But a big thing there as well was the approach. This isn't super flashy. It's not all of these things, but it's taking an idea of Instagram influencers, which is right for the Pop Sugar crowd and for the Sephora buyers, and kind of marrying it seamlessly together. So it does feel great. It doesn't feel sort of heavy-handed in any way.
Yeah, I like it. It's really simple. Has utility.
It actually reminds me of that one last year a little bit that we really liked, which was actually in fashion, which I liked a lot, that Refinery 29 Puma piece where it was links to buy products, but giving someone workout guides, that really nice. So take an insight from the company and kind of put that into the brand, to the publisher. I think works well. Cool. So this piece is one of our best travel, and this is on Thump, which is actually a Vice property. And, travel's a really great category. It's something that can be really visual. It can take you on a journey. And this was one that they did with Airbnb. And it was around South London and kind of bringing you a bit of a taste of the culture. Now, South London, it's not sort of like your Rome's and your New York. You tend to not know a huge amount about it. But here it kind of gives you information on record shops, little cafes, bars that you could be going to. And then as you scroll through and are looking at all these cool things, hey, whilst you're there, you might want to book yourself an Airbnb so you can really feel like a local. So really nice, between the brand and kind of that as well. Only thing I'd say is actually as you scroll down, you'll see that some of the images have been broken on the left-hand side. This wasn't a piece earlier in the year. When you're approaching publishers and you're looking for sort of, these partnerships, you want to be able to know that their pieces of content are going to be maintained so that you guys can actually continue to run, budget towards it, for, kind of continuing on for the year. So just keep an eye on that. But yeah, I think this was a really nice, to the point, but done for the Thump, which is a music sort of approach audience.
Yeah, I think Airbnb featured last year as well with some of their work on T-Brand Studio. We really like their thought leadership approach. Airbnb business is built up on niches, and now they've inspired us to visit South London.
So next piece is one for Discovering Dubai, which is one on travel and leisure for Emirates. Now, it's a pretty familiar format, but it allows you to break things out by, what am I going to be into in the morning? What do I want to do in the evening? And it gives you a bunch of ideas, shopping. You might want to go to, play golf for some reason. You might want to go eat some brunch. And it gives you all of these little options that you can dig into. It gives you maps so you can see it again and kind of figure out, plan your day a bit. Really like this. It's sort of a little bit different to that one before, a little bit more kind of in depth. But a really nice thing that could be done here is that on the data side for Emirates, they could actually measure the uplift the content had for creating additional bookings on the site. And then what they can do over time is refine it and distribute the best content based on, that. So really good to remember that there's always that sort of next step with these pieces of content in terms of the analytics as well.
Yeah, to really think about the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like Emirates wants more people to book. Dubai, of course, is their home.
Yeah.
So it all works really nicely.
So next, now this is a really different piece actually, and I think the reason we chose this piece on, Condé Nast Traveler for Maldives was that it reminds you that travel can actually be really simple. Beautiful imagery and content can drive conversions, shockingly. That looks lovely. You scroll through, it's an article, it's got beautiful pieces of content. Now, the really nice piece about this as well is that they weren't afraid of the Emirates one was really about Dubai, and like the South, the Vice one was more like about the area. But like with this, they've gone straight for exactly what they're trying to sell, and they've included like links through so you can purchase things. And interestingly, when you click through to their site, it's this really beautiful, rich content. Videos, lovely articles. And I think what I find really interesting about this is a lot of the time what we see with travel brands is they'll go and buy these insanely big, massive, beautiful pieces of content on other publisher sites, and then their sites are pretty straightforward and straight to the point. But this was an interesting approach, almost flipping that. Like, you want a lead, bring them in, and then kind of nurture them a bit more and go from there. So yeah, it's a little bit different in terms of travel.
Yeah, I got no comments. It's just good. It's
really
good.
Great,
it's
fantastic.
Good.
I hate all the work.
Well, look, how can you not look at that picture and want to go?
Yeah, I know, especially when it's
Cold.
-3 in New York. So next up, okay, entertainment, and then you're going to get a few entertainment ones. So this is, we've got in here about, I think, 3 or 4 that we really liked. And we do note these in our research reports that actually movies go to trailers and YouTube videos as their way to sort of get talkability, get people talking about what's going on before. But TV has really invested in terms of native content, and actually it's where some of, I think, the most original stuff has come from, and not really surprising because it's all about great narratives, which really lends itself so well to content. Now, this piece is on Wall Street Journal, and it's Gaming the American Dream, which is Billions as the show. And it's really great. It talks about the history of hedge funds, how people got to where they were. It concludes with like the premiere episode of Billions at the end. And it's a really great example about how Wall Street Journal can take the brand, in this case the show, and their audience into consideration when doing the content. And it definitely reminds me of one of our favourite pieces from last year, which was the Narcos on Wall Street Journal, where it just seamlessly pulls together a story. But, in that one, it was approaching how the cocaine trade changed the economics and like all these different things. And it was really interesting. And I think Wall Street Journal do a great job of that.
Yeah, I quite like that. It concludes that the episode's not up, but you can see the episode before the air date. Like a great way to seed the show.
So next up, okay, so this is actually my favourite.
One of your favourites. Yeah.
So, and not just because I like the Mindy Project. This is a piece for the Mindy Project, which is a Hulu show. Now, I think what I really loved about this was it was simple but unexpected. They partnered with Apartment Therapy, and what they do is they pick apart all the sets from the Mindy Project to show each piece and where you can buy it. Now, why I like this is it really shows how you can think outside the box, and you can come up with a new and insightful idea that doesn't mean you have to invest heaps in kind of content like design and build. So really different to that last piece, but just shows that sometimes that simplicity is okay, and they went to an audience that you wouldn't think maybe was the right connection, but the actual, the age, the demographics, everything linked perfectly. And actually, as you scrolled down, there were comments, and it was, some of them were like, comments about the show, the sets, the shows, commenting about, I don't think Mindy would ride that bike, and actually getting into the conversation, which is really, really all you can ask for when you do this kind of content.
Yeah, I think on that, opening up comments is super valuable for the right content. It helps increase attention. It helps increase earned impressions. And I think this piece really shows like a creative use of apartment therapy. Like, it wouldn't be the first thing you'd think of when you go, right, how do I promote a TV show?
Yeah.
But this is the exact content that their audience is after. So we really like this one. And nice to see Hulu coming in as well.
Yeah. It's not always Netflix. Yeah. Or is it?
Yeah.
So this is a piece for Stranger Things, which is a Netflix show, on Atlas Obscura. And actually, it was really nice. This was actually a bit of preceding before we all got completely obsessed with the show in the summer. And what it did is it looked at the secret life of a Long Island military camp, basically, and it was a little bit spooky and a little bit weird, and you kind of wondered what was going on there. And it really just helped kind of build some of that intrigue out for the show. Not sort of all singing, dancing, some of the pieces that you see from Netflix, but I like that what they do is once a show's released, there's sort of these very in-depth pieces, but they're actually very good at that preceding, which I've seen they're doing on the OA stuff as well. But I think that really links in well to that.
Yeah, I remember reading this. I hadn't watched the show yet, so you didn't quite get it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's really good. And
yes, so apparently it is still Netflix.
Yeah.
But actually, this is a piece on Wired, and it looks at the tech that took down a Titan, going back to the Narcos show about Pablo Escobar. Now, great story, fit with the audience for Wired. Looking at the technology, makes great connection. It leads into the show, and that's one of the things I have to say I've always really admired about Netflix is when they approach the publisher that they want to work with, they actually, I think, though the story's there, they let the publisher really tell that story. When it was Wall Street Journal, it was about the economics. When it's in the Wired, let's talk about the tech. And that's really good to trust the publishers, because that's when you're going to get some of the best content, because it's going to be that sort of seamless marriage between them. And yeah, again, little bits of clips of the videos. It does come back to the show, but it feels like it's still richer than just that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very creative execution. I like that the text is kind of hidden, then it reveals itself like it's been blacked out. Cheesy, but it works.
And next up, next up we have, this is actually a piece on The Atlantic, which falls into our best of professional services B2B. And native content is actually a really great entry point for these kind of brands. This example on The Atlantic for Pitney Bowes really drills home the death of brick and mortar. And it's a really good tactic. It draws people in on a topic that actually only their audience would be interested in.
Yeah.
But they use the publisher to get in front of that audience, and then they linked it back through to a business objective. It's actually, you can also download the PDF. It's like a presentation. They've got heaps of insights as you go through it as well. So it's something you could actually share. I thought it was a really nice, piece that was niche to their audience as well.
I think that is the key thing for professional services or B2B. The one we selected last year, I think, was on Ad Age, and it was a design philosophy from a design firm, how they thought about design. And so the key to success here is working with the right publisher, having the right content that only draws in people that are interested, if you're not interested around brick and mortar and is it going to succeed, you're not going to read, right?
No, exactly.
And so it allows you to, draw the right audience in and get the most from it. And it's perfect because you can get a lot of time with that audience. We see at scale, native content generates around 50 seconds of attention, or 0.8 attention minutes. And so it's very valuable for the right audience. On to the next one. And so this is our best finance of 2016. And so finance brands have really flocked
to native content. We see a lot of tight executions all over the market, and we like this one because it's very creative. And so it's from SoFi, and it's how to nail the job interview. Shared on Imager, who've really been doing a lot of creative executions this year. We've featured them as Campaign of the Week 2 or 3 times. And we just like this because it's sharing practical tips on how to nail the job interview.
In a fun way.
Yeah, in a fun way, in a way that draws their audience in. The other thing about sitting on their platform is it's cross-device friendly. So it works nicely here. It's going to work nicely inside their mobile app as well. And of course, a lot of engagement here. And then the other thing is this is evergreen as well. They can use this again next year.
Exactly, and actually having that sometimes around those kind of key points of how to nail the job interview is that they're such great ones, aren't they? Because like you said, they can add into it. They can take insights from what worked. Was there maybe like a particular point where people were spending a bit more time like on like tip 3 or whatever it may be? You can start to extend things. So it's also really nice for these things to not think that once you've actually just released it, that's it. Sometimes to think about how you can like optimize and keep going from there.
Yeah, how you can make the most of your investment. And then the other finance one is this one with Business Insider. Now, we don't normally recommend some of the content hubs because what we tend to find is that people focus too much on the hub, but a hub is made up of great content. And we like the framing of this, your guide to investing across the globe. And so as we dig into each of these articles, it has some insights using the brand's data with iShares.
Yeah, pulling in some great graphs and information for each one.
And so it's super useful. You go, well, how do I invest around the world? I can learn some more about the Canadian economy. And of course, if I want to invest, I know where to go, right?
And you also, iShares BlackRock can take the insight of where were people clicking into, what was actually of the most interest. And I also think actually, going back to what you were saying about the Content Hub here, is that Content Hub page before looked quite similar to the rest of the Business Insider site. And I think sometimes what people forget with Content Hubs is, say, for example, you're booking something with Business Insider or, Wall Street Journal or, something like that. The audience knows their site because they go there a lot. And so designing something that doesn't look like the site, which is what a lot of Content Hubs can look really different, just immediately can be a little bit jarring for the end user, where actually they know the layout of the site. So kind of fitting within that definitely works. And that's why I like this piece a bit more, actually.
I think one final great thing about this is that you can use the Business Insider network to promote all of this content. And again, optimize that to the best performing piece of content.
Again, as well, a little thing, but we'll probably talk about it a bit more at the end. But so nice to still see that there are no competing ads anywhere on the content. I know it seems like a small thing, and apologies for everyone who definitely knows that and would never have that happen. But you still see so much, just completely different ads or pop-up ads coming in over your content. It's really important, that not happen.
Excellent. Now on to auto. And so the thing with auto content is they're basically selling a lifestyle. Sell me the dream. Show me what I'll get with your vehicle. And we quite liked, Range Rover did a range of executions this year working with content creators to basically show a view of their city, whether it was LA or New York. I think they did one in Chicago as well. And so very straightforward. Lots of photos with the new Range Rover around the city, a great branded video, a nice integration, not too long as well. And then also with this one, we like the length of the content. It's half the battle to get attention. Why not hold that attention if you can?
I think as well, something that I really liked here is where the video was placed. So a lot of times you'll feel it feels like people do one of two things. The video is right at the top with no information about what it's even going to be about. And most of the time we want a bit more information before we hit that play button. Yeah. Well, it's buried right at the end. And as we already said, if people are scrolling an average of 64%, probably not getting down to it. And so if it's a key action or it's a key objective to get people to watch, which it is, they've got an artist to go and create this beautiful piece of content, where they've placed it is a really, really great place. And it's also really good to keep an eye on that when the campaigns are running, looking at, actually, are people getting down to there? Because if not, then might need to be some changes.
Yeah.
we also see with auto brands, there's great visibility into how this performs. Like if people go to the Range Rover website, access the dealer locator, that's easy to track. So you can see what is the best content creating the most purchase intent, and then you can go and optimize your distribution to that content to maximize it. And on that point around video, we've got one here on Vox's Curbed. And so very similar to the Range Rover piece, it's basically selling you on the lifestyle you can have when you've got the new Jeep and living out on Long Island. And so a couple of little improvements. They did go straight to the video, which could be a bit confusing. And the reason that can be confusing is people have clicked on a headline like this for content they want to read. So if you let them start reading, they'll happily watch the video.
Yeah.
But kind of give them what they've asked for or what you've promised. It's just basically.
I think we're also quite it's sort of more of a human, I guess, insight, but that we're all quite precious with our time. You're probably sneaking in a quick read of a site in between emails. You might want a bit more information before you invest in some content, like a video. I thought this was good, though. I thought having that long-form article as well in there, as well as the video. And actually, on that note, looking at content formats, actually a lot of the time that mix of video and article together can be such a great one for getting high attention. So good example is, I'm not necessarily someone who would watch a lot of video, but I would quite happily sit there and read the article. But it means that you're kind of getting both people there as well. And if they do either, they've done the job, really.
Exactly, they've done the job. I also like the integration of like a little brand unit, so you can see more of the product.
Not being afraid of the product actually being in the piece.
Like, I need to sell the Jeep.
Yes.
And here's the next one for Adobe. So Adobe did a lot of executions around the Olympics, which we quite liked. This is one on T-Brand Studio. And so in the technology/software space, we see that brands can kind of be a bit reserved. They realize their audience are very like tech savvy. And so they're almost like a little apologetic in their content. But there's plenty of studies that show that millennials don't mind advertising paying for content. What they mind is whether the content is quality or not. And so we quite like this piece on T-Brand Studio, just talking about how technology is changing the viewing of the Olympic Games. I think quite interesting. I think TV viewership of this year's Olympics in the US was the lowest ever. So this is very timely. And of course, good for Adobe. If you want to be thinking about changing consumer behavior, what tools should you be using? Adobe.
And it kind of leads, I think, as well, obviously great timing around the Olympics, nice piece of content, and, again, a well-researched T-Brand Studio article, which I think is why you can sometimes that technology approach works really well here, because it doesn't feel light. You feel like you do learn, there's heaps of information, and even if you are savvy, they're giving you some stats, metrics, benchmarks that you may not have realized, so you still feel like you're walking away, with that bit more information. Another Wall Street Journal.
We will say the Wall Street Journal has featured quite prominently in this year's The Best of Native, and we've just found that they've helped introduce a lot of new formats at scale and introduced a new level of storytelling across a lot of verticals. We quite like this one also in the software space, Bitdefender, the antivirus company. And so an honest history of hacking. And so the article really digs into cybercrime and how it impacts the world, and very relevant at the moment. But I think it's simple, it's straightforward. Like, if I'm reading about hacking and cybercrime and I'm on the Wall Street Journal, maybe I should be looking at Bitdefender as a solution.
Exactly, that great link, and also that giving you that information, that history, you're getting into it, you're realizing it's a little bit scary maybe, and then having that connection there is really great. And it's a really rich piece, actually, to have little articles that you can click through to, seeing big numbers in red that scare you. But all of that information, there's heaps of different information. Again, we go back to that thing, why is it with Wall Street Journal, it's probably featured quite a few times, but it's that well-researched, it's bringing in the stats that would appeal to their audience. And I think that's where you see the best publishers, is where it is that connection back to their audience, and they
Yep.
know what their audience are interested in,
Yep.
and so when you let them run with it, these are the kind of pieces you can get.
Excellent. And
Avocado.
up and coming, food and drink. And
First BuzzFeed list.
So I think this is the first, I mean, it's the only edition of BuzzFeed this year. And so it's from Avocados from Mexico, a brand we've also featured a few times.
Because who doesn't like avocados?
Everyone loves avocados. But I think the proposition is simple, like, buy avocados. And every year they just show us new ways to eat avocados.
It feels like it kind of just does what it says really on the tin, doesn't it? It's beautiful imagery with heaps of recipes, links through to it, and a bunch of, yes, I'd love to wrap bacon around avocados. I've never realised that before. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Straightforward. Well, I think the thing is with consumer goods, you just want to remain top of mind. It's a great way to remain top of mind. And then we've got this piece with Simply Orange. And so they're sharing some simple recipes to try. And the reason we like this is a lot of consumer brands are very Pinterest heavy. And this has a nice Pinterest integration. And so you can click on each of these to pin it. And then it pulls in the recipe and you can add it to your board.
And as you see that, it's got Simply Orange, Smoothie Bowl. Now, one of the challenges we see for like food brands is there's these beautiful pieces of content that have been created, and they know that people are going to want to share them on Pinterest, so they can never cook them and just look at them. But they'll have them there. But the problem is you can't just look at engagement. What you want to understand is after people are sharing the content, are their followers, coming back and reading the content? And that's so great, especially for a publisher, because that's really organic traffic that's coming through. And it's great for the brand as well because it's showing that your content's resonating.
Yeah.
However, Pinterest historically really doesn't drive a high amount of earned impressions. Though it's a great platform, it's just not the nature of the platform. It's more that you kind of, once you're in Pinterest, you can kind of stay within Pinterest. You go through all the feed and you might pin something. But that doesn't mean you click through and read the article. Now, what they've done here that's so clever is they've realized, okay, that's fine. We're actually going to make it so you have to pin it to get the recipe. But actually, if people just discover it through Pinterest, the brand is on that pin. It says Simply Orange. It's got all of the information. So it actually doesn't really matter if you're not getting a high volume of earned impression ratio. As long as it's being shared, the job's being done.
Yeah.
So, really beautiful. But I just really liked the way they approached that issue with Pinterest and solved it.
Excellent. And so now we're coming up on our final two, best alcohol and luxury. And so we featured this a number of times, Scotch and Other Stories to Savour, presented it on Travel and Leisure. And the reason we really like this is because it shares the story behind multiple whiskey brands. And so you can dig into each of them, learn a bit more. And it's kind of nice because it's a nice framework for, I guess, challenger or independent brands to approach some bigger campaigns by combining the spend, but also bringing in a whiskey drinker who wants to come in and try several whiskies and learn a bit more about all of them. We quite like this one. And then the other alcohol one, again, also whiskey, the best dressed, less stressed guest. And so it just talks about being the best person at the dinner party, pretty much. Again,
what you should be wearing.
What you should be wearing.
Drinking.
What you should be drinking.
Bringing.
And we should be drinking Dewar's. But we quite like this, and I think it's a little bit of a forgotten art, like including assets in your content that can be shared and live beyond the piece of content itself. So,
and this is a really, it's a humorous, fun thing. Can I criticise the food? Do you value your host's opinion at all? Not really. Great. Does your date? And you can really kind of just have a bit of a laugh with it. And I think what that's really nice about the Dewar's piece is that there's so many different parts. So you've got what I should be wearing, what I should be bringing, which is a little bit, light, but kind of shows you, gives you that kind of cool look. But then has a bit of laugh with you, and kind of takes that little bit of value, and then gives you some additional things to go through as well. So yeah, really not overly complicated, but actually feels like it did a lot within it.
And so next up, we've got luxury. And so we kind of see luxury advertisers have like a growing appetite for native content. They're looking for brand safe environments. They want to see something they can see and touch. They want the efficiency and transparency, but also they want to reach millennials, and millennials are a growing segment in luxury, especially here in the US. And native content is the best way to get in front of them and share the stories. And so this was with Park Hyatt, talking about the taste masters, basically some of the talent which helped create the Park Hyatt experience, and how they thought about curating the space, the level of thought that went into the lighting, the furniture, the colours, the experience you would have. And we really like that. Like it's just storytelling at its best. And we see through 2017, it's going to be a lot more luxury brands in the space.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's going to be really interesting. It feels like I think last year when we do this, I don't think luxury really crossed our open minds much. There wasn't a huge amount about it. Every time you'd see it, it would be a straightforward advertorial, because they hadn't quite figured out how to move into that part. Yeah. And whereas this year, it's been really interesting to see them come into it and see what they're going to do next. And these partnerships with people like the New York Times, that makes such sense for them. So I really like this piece.
And then we've also got this one. So again, in the luxury space, looking at the future of business travel, like, what can you give people to convince them that they should be getting NetJets so they can get around the US? Again, really simple, straightforward. Gives a few of the reasons why you should fly with NetJets, and just a bit more deep diving into the solution.
And I liked that part, the experience.
Yeah.
Like, so you can actually understand, for those of us who haven't flown many private jets, unfortunately, I like this. It kind of takes you through the steps, and, I don't know, it set the scene for me a little bit more, because, I'm not a celebrity.
And there was a little rumor that NetJets paid them in flight time. Actually, that's a rumor I started. That's not true. No. But so that's it in terms of the best native. We are sharing a blog post with a bit more of a write-up on all of this and a few other notable mentions. We will send that out to all attendees. Before we jump across to Q&A, I've got a couple of examples of emerging formats. So as we look through 2017, we see the emergence of VR. At Nudge, we're not yet convinced there's enough of an audience there, but certainly brands are experimenting. We're seeing the rise, of course, of AMP and instant articles. So the idea being on mobile environments, you want to get people to the content really fast. This is a great example with VentureBeat and Undertone, technically Nativeception as well. So we see a lot more of this coming down the pipeline. And the other area is podcasts. We saw GE's The Message this year launch. It went really well. You've got two great producers with Gimlet Media and Monopoly from Slate. So we see a lot of growth there. And so, before we jump over to Q&A, Holly, do you want to share a top tip? Do you have a top tip?
I do. I probably have a few, but I'll stick to one. So for me, I would say that one of the biggest things I still think needs so much attention is distribution optimization. And by that, what I'm really meaning is, so much of the time it feels like we focus on, we need that reach, but you also want quality. And so how are you going to get that quality? Well, you need to understand, actually how the distribution is performing. You need to have it split out. You need to understand what's working, what's not. And you need to focus on those post-click metrics so that you can actually understand if one source is driving higher attention. That's probably my tip.
It makes a lot of sense, right? Attention is so fickle. You want to make sure you're making the most of it. Right?
Definitely. And I think sometimes as well, it's, seeing that big reach number, we've got to, and for most publishers and for most agencies, they say they want a certain guarantee, but the quality needs to be there. And so you have to have that part. Otherwise, how do you get there,
Yeah, and segueing from that, I guess my top tip would be just setting KPIs up front. I know this sounds really basic, but just agreeing up front what are the KPIs for this campaign. And we see
most KPIs are sitting into a reach metric and then a quality metric, which makes sure that that reach is of value. And so that's usually some sort of social engagement or attention. So those will be our 2 top tips. Make sure you optimize your distribution and set the KPIs up front. Now, we do have some other best practices and some trends and watch outs looking through 2017. We'll share that via email, but also make sure you subscribe to This Week in Native Ads for campaigns each week. And so, Holly,
cool. I've done some questions. We've got a couple here. So first off, someone was just asking about what are the best content formats. We've shown a lot of different content here.
Yeah.
With everything from real interactive to straightforward articles. Yeah. Can you kind of give any information in terms of what you think some of the best content formats are? And I've got some ideas.
You've got some ideas. So I think first off, it does matter by vertical, because how people think of your product, your competitive set, how people are going to buy your product all have an impact. And so the best way to look at that by vertical is actually on the Nudge website in our resources section. We have research papers for each vertical, so you can look at what are the best publishers to look at, and what are the best formats. So that's the first one. I think personally I'm a fan of just a straight article mixed with either a few images or video. And the reason for that is it is a lot easier to get high scale in terms of reach, but also great attention on the content. And also very cross-device friendly. So you can look at how you're reaching people on mobile, tablets, or desktop.
Cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I would actually agree with basically everything you said. But I think also it's really important within those categories to, yes, have that split out, have those benchmarks so you understand, okay, what am I trying to get here? Okay, if I'm trying to get high social engagement, a list is never going to hurt you. Yeah. If I'm trying to get high attention, an article with a mix of a video is going to, and I think that actually really leads into the best content formats depend on your KPIs.
Yeah.
And obviously with the categories as well. I think those research reports are a great way of doing that. But I think it's it all links back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just one more question, which was I think we'd obviously start talking about distribution optimization. That's actually asking, how do you optimize distribution?
So I think the way that we look at it is we go, look, all content is distributed, right? Some of that's free, some of that's paid. You want to see what is the value of all of that traffic. What is the quality of that traffic? So we recommend looking at post-click metrics. What happens after people click on your content? How far are they scrolling down? How much attention are they giving? Because for the brands, value is exchanged when people consume the content. And so if they're not consuming it, that click isn't of value.
It's a banner.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think obviously this is a bit of a passion project of mine, and so I'll jump in on that. But I think with distribution, one of the things that I just see in terms of that optimization is just that there's still sort of a not clear understanding of that. And so, it's really important to understand, how everything's arriving at your site. Of course, some people have discovered it naturally, and that's brilliant. But some people came through from a native content, unit, and some came through from a social post. And you need to understand which of those are driving the highest attention, which of those are driving people who are actually staying on the page after it loaded. Yeah. All of those little insights, but also as well, kind of taking us back to that purchase, that purchase intent. You also want to be able to understand not just, hey, it's this piece of content driving people to look at the store locator on my site, but wait, how did they get to the content before they converted?
Yeah.
Because then I can understand, like the holy grail of, that's the piece of content, that's the media source, job done. And so I think that's really it. And you just need the tools, Nudge, you need to understand, so you can actually look at each of those things to see what's next. And that's it for our questions.
Cool. Thank you so much for tuning in. We wish you all a happy holidays. Thanks for attending. We'll send an email out tomorrow just with a link to these slides so you can rip them off and put them in your own presentations. We welcome you to do so. And we will send you a link to the write-up. Please do share it. And then also, for anyone that does have any last-minute campaigns, I believe we're briefed on a couple this morning, which is extremely last-minute. Reach out. But otherwise, we'll catch you in 2017. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.